This is Surfing Through Cinema. I'm your host, Hawaii Harry. Today, with my buddy Shane, we will be discussing the next film for Streaming Through Cinema Week, Rocketman. Okay, Shane. So, Rocketman, what were your thoughts and opinions of this good old movie?
I thought it was a fantastic film. I was never super into Elton John before. Probably like a lot of people, Rocketman I thought was totally fascinating. Learning about his life, learning about his relationships, the trauma he went through, his struggles with all sorts of vices from sex to drugs.
Oh, yeah.
So it is a very tragic story in many ways, but clearly it had a relatively happy ending. He's still kicking it today, so couldn't have been that sad of an ending.
Yeah, he's still standing.
Yeah, he is. Sort of. He's a little old. He's a little wobbly, I bet, but he's he can still perform. He's an incredible dude.
Mhm.
But yeah, I thought it was a good movie. I really did. Um, yeah, it was
Yeah,
great.
it was a good movie. I liked. So when I initially went into it, I was like, it's a little weird how he's still alive and he's making a biopic about himself. To me, it felt a little conceited.
Yeah, I I sort of agree with that a little bit. It's a little conceited, but I mean, it's sort of hard to smack talk someone who has done, has been so hugely successful. And I think it would be cool if more biopics were made on celebrities that were still around, because it sort of adds an extra level of authenticity. Because
Mhm.
Bohemian Rhapsody, of course, that was made long after Freddie passed. And after seeing that one, I was curious how factual, how genuine it was to his actual life.
Yeah,
And I was disappointed because a lot of the points the movie made, a lot of the big dramatic elements of it seemed like they were fairly fabricated. Like they were loosely based on reality, but a lot of it was fabricated, to make the movie more dramatic and make it more exciting. And I think that Rocketman did that to some extent because it's a movie and it's made to bring in an audience, but I think it was a lot closer to reality than Bohemian Rhapsody, and I think that a lot of biopics would be on the same route as Rocketman, sort of being more truthful and you know not quite fudging the lives, possibly tainting some of the people's opinions of that person without their consent because they're dead. So
yeah,
although it was a little conceited, I think you're right about that. I think that I would like to see more conceited celebrities. I guess that's what I'm saying.
yeah. They should do a George Clooney biopic. See how
Yeah,
interesting that would be.
that would be pretty nuts.
Anything else you found interesting, like plot wise or um, character? I guess character wise, they were real people, but
Yeah,
you know,
they were. Yeah, um, some of the people were so absurd though it's hard to believe they were real. But I mean, again, I would like to believe it's all how it was. Um, I think that the best or character relationship in that movie was between Elton John and his friend Bernie Taupin.
mhm.
Is that how you pronounce his
I
name?
think so.
Taupin.
Yeah.
Their relationship was sort of stagnant in a way where they first met. They became super close, and they that didn't waver too much throughout the movie. They had the big blow up, and then Bernie left, and that was dramatic and sad.
Hmm.
But then that was sort of the only dip, and it didn't really feel that extreme to me because shortly after that, Bernie was back supporting him, and they made friends again, and so that was even though that relationship was sort of relatively stagnant throughout the movie compared to a lot of the other ones. I thought that it was sort of the heart of the movie in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. You know, despite all the crap Elton gave him, he still stuck around. Everybody else left Elton, really, like his parents and his manager.
Yeah, his manager, lover, whatever.
Yeah.
That crazy relationship. Yeah, he was the only one that stuck around. He was, the only one that really supported him throughout everything, more or less. Again, there's the one sort of rocky patch that they had.
Mm-hmm.
But that relationship was just so wholesome, and they had the cute little moment where Elton was sort of into him romantically at the start, and Bernie shot him down, but there was no hard feelings there. They totally, then when, so it was just, that always was like a bright spot of that movie, where whenever those two characters interacted,
Yeah.
always just a very wholesome, good feeling.
Uh-huh. Especially at the end, when Elton was coming out of the rehab center, and they like had that moment together.
Yeah, he gave Elton the papers, and that was a nice little cherry on top. Yeah, the rehab center, that was the structure of the movie was cool too, how they sort of non-linear structured it.
Yeah.
They cut back to present day with him in the rehab place having his little AA meeting sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I really liked how at the end of the movie, when he kind of close to the end, he's like wearing his Art Devil costume.
Yeah.
And how he realized he needed to finally go to rehab, and then the audience is like, "Oh, that's the moment. That's when it happened."
Yeah, you saw him, barge out of the, away from the stadium in his costume, which is, and something else funny about this movie that I liked a lot was how it wasn't afraid at all of being really over the top and really sort of cheesy in a lot of ways. And looking at Elton John's performances and stuff, he was always a very over the top, very hammy person with his outfits and costumes he wore on stage and his performances. I think that they did a really good job sort of capturing that element and that spirit of him being just a totally over the top, sort of absurd person in the movie.
Oh yeah. Especially when he was like doing hardcore drugs, or I think it was right after he went into the hospital. They like take off all of his clothes and then put on the Dodgers uniform, and he's literally right back on stage. It was just crazy transition.
Yeah, and it's like things like that where it is sort of, almost surrealistic like stuff. Scenes like that. There was a scene of when he first performed at the Troubadour, where he did his famous jump on the piano, and he was floating in air for 25 seconds, and the whole audience started floating up. There's that scene. There's another scene where he was trying to kill himself. He was jumping into the pool after jacking up on drugs. And he saw his own childhood self at the bottom of the pool. He swam down to him. That was cute.
Yeah.
But so I think elements like that were very, they were very over the top, very, fictitious feeling things. Did a good job capturing just his whole essence of him as a person, which I think was the job of the movie. So I thought it executed that really well.
Yeah. And I liked how they weren't afraid to make him look like a jerk. Like he became a total jerk when he was really hardcore into drugs. And it had to do, I think, a lot with the manager and how he was really mean to him too.
Yeah, the manager was, using him for his money, using him sexually. It was just a mess all around for poor John.
I will say, I didn't realize it was a musical going into it.
Oh, really?
Like, I thought it was going to be like Bohemian Rhapsody, where it was them singing the songs, but like at a performance, not necessarily like in a musical where it just happens in the background.
Yeah, they just burst out in song, and his whole family starts singing with him, and yeah, that's a good point, because that also sort of added to sort of the absurdity of it, because musicals always have that almost comically absurd feeling to them, especially before you get used to it, the first song number comes out and it's people sitting around a kitchen table and start belting out music together and harmonizing, and it feels really goofy. Um, you know, but that was good.
Anything plot wise you didn't like, or structure wise?
I think plot wise, I wish this movie felt like it didn't have much of a B plot to it. Sort of, it felt like it was. So it's a biopic, so that sort of makes sense. But it felt like it was, only. I guess I just like the Bernie character so much, the best friend I was talking about earlier. I wish it sort of followed him a little bit more too, and followed sort of how Elton's decisions he was making impacted Bernie and impacted, his course. And I know he moved back home, I guess. They briefly touched on that.
Yeah.
And I felt that was... They could have been a little deeper on his character and developing what was going on with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the fact that, Elton John got married and then a scene later they're divorced, that's like 4 years of their life right there that they just skim over.
Were they married for 4 years?
Yeah, I looked that up. They were married for 4 years.
Oh my, I thought it was like a couple months or something. That's nuts.
Yeah. Like, they totally brush aside a lot of those important facts.
Yeah, because that was sort of such a turning point in his life, too, because that's when he was, so strongly battling, too, with the sexuality and everything, and he was, marrying a woman to sort of appease the masses, appease his family and everything. So, yeah, I never would have guessed that their relationship was that long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the fact that his buddy or whatever, they've been making music for 40 years now, and they kind of just barely talk about that at the end of the movie, like that photo slideshow at the end.
Yeah.
It was like a 2-second slideshow of how they ended up. I thought that was kind of lame too.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's sort of, I mean, did the movie sort of end where he got his life on track? I don't really know Elton John's life after sort of the end of the movie. Like, was it sort of smooth sailing for him from there on? I can't imagine it was that smooth, but
I don't know. They didn't tell us.
I know. So yeah, I guess it would have been cool if they brought it a little closer to present day. Because how old is he now? He's
like in his 70s or 80s now. He's pretty old.
Yeah, so there's a pretty large chunk that's not really discussed in the movie at all. A big chunk of his life.
But I guess he's still alive, so.
Yeah, so they could always make a Rocketman Part 2 from, his 40s till he's 80.
Yeah.
It might be pretty boring, but...
Yeah, it's going to be all humanitarian stuff, probably.
Yeah, it won't be anything anyone wants to see in the theaters. What is that? I feel like you're watching a Disney Earth movie.
Yeah. Exactly.
And speaking of Disney, one cool little tidbit is with the credit song in Rocketman, "I'm Gonna Love Me Again," which again sort of epitomizes the whole essence of the movie. Elton John won his first Oscar since The Lion King in 1995.
Oh wow!
So he still got it. He's 70. He's still got the chops, winning Oscars.
Yeah, he's still standing.
he's hasn't stopped standing. Yeah.
That's awesome. Wow. I guess I didn't really watch the Oscars. I didn't realize that they even won anything from it.
I sort of skipped over the Oscars this year.
To be honest, I haven't watched it in like 6 years.
Yeah, I watched the last one I was excited about was Shape of Water. Was that last year? 2 years ago?
I think it was 2 years ago.
2 years ago? I like that one.
Yeah.
That was a fun little Oscars. And then was it the year before that was the whole fiasco with La La Land? Moonlight? Is that 3 years? That was 4 years ago? 3 years ago? I don't know.
I think the movie came out 4 years ago, but I think the Oscars was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
For that one.
So that was, yeah. Those
crazy.
are the last two that I really paid attention to.
We'll see what happens this year.
Yeah.
Nothing. No movies.
No movie. I know. There's no theatrical releases. There's It'll be interesting to see how streaming opens up for the Oscars. What sort of new guidelines there are for nominated movies.
Yeah, I kind of feel like they should have done that to begin with. You know, like
Yeah,
it shouldn't have taken a worldwide pandemic to do that.
I know. I mean, it's pretty clear how powerful streaming is now, and how powerful home entertainment is now more than ever before,
Mhm.
with how many originals are coming out. It's like I don't think Netflix should be forced to have a movie in a theater for 3 weeks or however long it is
Yeah,
to get a. It's absurd.
yeah. Like with this movie and with Bohemian Rhapsody, I didn't watch them in theaters. I watched one on the plane and one on Hulu. Like I don't go to the theater anymore.
Yeah, I don't go as much as I used to either.
It's a hassle.
It's, especially now. I mean, I'm. We'll see if movie theaters are still kicking it after after things open up again, because they were already almost drowning,
Yeah.
before the whole pandemic. So we'll see.
Did you get to see Onward before they pulled it?
No, I didn't.
Oh, well, I saw it. I think it was the week before they started doing everything, and yeah, that was the last movie I saw in theaters. I kind of regret that.
That it wasn't good.
I mean, it was good, but I don't think it was last time ever going to movie theater good. you
Yeah,
know?
that's fair. I can't remember the last movie I saw. It might have been Parasite.
Hmm.
I think Parasite was the last movie I saw in theaters. That was a while ago too. So
Yeah, I gotta check that one out. I think it's on Hulu as well.
yeah, hmm
Yeah.
that's a good one.
Do you think that one deserved Best Picture?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. I thought that was a I like that movie a lot, and the only other movie I liked as much as Parasite was Uncut Gems.
Hmm.
And Uncut Gems got no
Got
Oscar
nothing.
buzz at all, but that was my favorite. I think that was my favorite movie of the year was Uncut Gems.
I really liked Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
That was good. That was good too.
Did you get to see 1917?
I didn't.
Oh, I want to see that one too.
I want to see that one as well. That's one of those, one takes with,
Yeah.
a little gimmicky, but it's supposed to be really good.
Speaking of one takes, did you like the takes in that kind of transition through Elton John's childhood to adulthood?
That was a good way of doing, a passage of time thing without, just cutting and having a little thing saying, like 15 years later
Yeah.
in the lower third. I like that a lot.
They did it in a way where it looked like when the little kid went out down the fence and then came out, it was the Taron Egerton.
Edgerton? I think it's Edgerton. I think.
Taron
Don't
E
quote me on it.
comes out.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I thought that was really cool because it was
Yeah.
very seamless.
I know, it was, and his kid actors, the kid actors in this movie were great.
Yeah,
Which
they were really good
I usually-
singers.
Yeah, they were good singers, and I thought, they were, I was blown away by how good their actual performances were for how young they were, because usually kid actors are like the thing that really holds a movie back in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Oh yeah, especially at the end when his younger self wants a hug from him. That was like
Yeah.
very emotional.
Ooh.
It's like whoa,
That was.
dang.
And the during the credits, the slideshow in the credits, the physical similarities between the kid actor they got and Elton John when he was a kid,
Oh,
like that was nuts.
oh, I missed that because stupid Hulu puts a bunch of ads in it when it's the
Oh.
credits. I didn't see that.
Yeah, there's this picture. It was the scene when he was a really little kid playing the piano for one of the first times, and he's like looking over his left shoulder. And they have this, frame by frame, side by side, the frames from the movie, then an old photograph, and it's like, it's uncanny how similar these kids look.
That's crazy.
That was good casting for sure on the kids. That's pretty much my thoughts on Rocketman.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good movie though. I would
Oh, yeah.
absolutely watch it again.
I will say it was a little crazy at some parts though. I think Elton John said one time about this movie, I didn't live a PG-13 life.
Yeah, I saw something about how I guess I don't know if the studio or who it was wanted to tone down a lot of the sex, drug stuff in the movie.
Mm.
And I guess Elton John didn't. I might be mistaken, but I think Elton John didn't want to tone it down at all because he wanted to, keep it similar, real to his life, and
Yeah.
he didn't want to have the softer adaptation of how he grew up.
Like you were saying earlier, that's probably what happened with the Bohemian Rhapsody. I think the studio got in and really, really toned it down.
Yeah, I'm sure Freddie Mercury had a much more explicit, crazier experience than it was portrayed. What are your thoughts on his father in the movie?
Oh, he was such a dirtbag.
He was awful, wasn't he?
Yeah, both of his parents, but the dad was the worst in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like,
sort of.
I guess depends. He was worse.
Yeah.
Like, for being affectionate, but then his mom was the worst for being caring. I don't know, but
yeah, she was so cold.
Yeah.
Like the line that really sticks with you through that movie is when he calls his mom from the payphone. He comes out to his mom, and his mom is like, "Oh, I've always known that, but as long as you're okay with never being loved properly and never really being truly loved, then good for you. Good luck."
Yeah.
And it's like, how could you say that to your son? That's
horrible.
Oh.
And when like the dad, he gave his dad a watch, and his dad didn't care, and then he's like, "Hey, can you sign this for my friend?"
I know.
What the heck?
Yeah. And then the dad, his two new sons.
Yeah.
That was tragic. That was a heartbreaking scene.
Yeah. He's like, what the heck was up with that, man?
Yeah.
It must have been one of those, like, one night stand turning into having to get a shotgun wedding situation.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think they actually had any intentions of being together. So.
Yeah.
But man, that was messed up.
Rough. I wonder, neither of his parents, they couldn't be alive right now, right?
I don't think so.
If he's 70, yeah. I'd love to hear, their reception of their portrayal in the movie. That would be interesting.
The mom would probably be like, "That's not accurate at all. I was nothing like that. I was a perfect angel."
Yeah.
And do you have anything else you want to add, Shane, before we go on a break?
Nah. I have expressed all of my important thoughts about Rocketman.
All right. Well, with that being said, we'll go on a break real quick. But first, here's a message from our sponsor.
This podcast is brought to you by Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Here's how. It's totally free. There are tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast from your computer and even your cell phone. But that's not all. Anchor distributes your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many, many more. You could even make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Anchor is everything you need to make a complete podcast all in one small place. So go on and download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today.
Okay, so we're back from our break. So now we're going to discuss some of my points about Rocketman. I kind of touched about it earlier, but it felt a little conceited how Elton John made a biopic when he was alive. Like, that was my initial thought going into it. But when I actually watched it, I realized, oh, this is him being kind of upfront about how his life really was being in this industry. But then I also thought, but he's also doing a 3-year farewell tour. So I don't know where I don't know if it's considered or not. And he released a book. Like,
yeah, I see what you mean. I mean, it is, definitely good marketing for his tour and his book.
Oh, for sure.
And vice versa. His tour is good marketing for the movie, and his book's good. So it's definitely, I think, a business move, probably.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, like I was saying earlier, though, I think him doing a biopic while he's still around is, in many ways, sort of helps it as a film and helps it structurally, narratively. But yeah, it's a little funny. It's a little funny that he released it while he's, he's still around, and here it is.
I think it turned out fine. Like, it was a great movie. Like, I could definitely see it going the other way, where it was like he was the perfect angel and everybody else around him was terrible.
Yeah.
Like, I could definitely see that would have happened if he really was full of himself.
Yeah, it seemed like it was very, he was very real about, the faults he had and how the whole industry and how the whole, ecosphere of music and entertainment sort of trashed him, but he also didn't really stop it from trashing him in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
He embraced it a lot. And it seemed like he was, throughout the movie, he was, unless he was on a horrible drug binge, he was very self-aware in a lot of ways of, how he was changing himself to fit in and how he needed to change to succeed. Well, it was like the first line in the movie when he was talking to the black artist. I can't remember his name. And he said that you have to destroy yourself. You have to destroy yourself to become who you want to be. I think that the movie did feel very genuine in Elton John knowing that he was sort of destroying himself in a lot of his relationships to achieve what he wanted to. And then he ultimately felt horrible about it. And it turned out okay in the end, but...
Yeah, luckily he recovered from that, because a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
A lot of singers and whatnot. Pretty lucky.
I know. If you look at the amount of people in the music world that died just from ODing, both back then and today, I mean, every day I feel like you see some young upcoming artist, ODing on something and passing away. So he was lucky.
For sure, and having Bernie around really was good for him.
Yeah, sort of acted as his rock throughout a lot of the movie.
I liked how the rehab center and both Bernie were kind of like, calm and not like super extravagant and crazy like everything else in the movie. Like, it seemed like they were the solid foundation, like you were saying, that kind of helped him get out of that crazy rock life.
Yeah, those are the two things that sort of brought him down to earth. Especially at the end. At the end when he turned into a Rocketman himself.
Yeah,
took off.
Okay, I will say I did not like that at all. I was like, "What the heck?"
Yeah, I really liked that because again, like one of my favorite parts was how it got so over the top through a lot of it, and that was one of those things that was totally like it was so absurd that it was, you had to laugh at it just because it was so goofy looking. So I thought that the movie was brave in doing stuff like that, still trying to be a very serious movie while not taking itself seriously at all. It was cool.
I really liked Taron Egerton, whatever his name is. I think he's actually a really, really good singer. Like, I loved how he did basically his version of it. He didn't try imitating Elton John that much. Especially with like Rocketman, the actual song Rocketman.
Yeah, he did a great job adapting those songs. And he his first time, as far as I know, adapting it was in Sing, the 2006 animated movie. Yeah. He played the gorilla who performs I'm Still Standing. So that was, a good performance in Sing. I saw Sing when that first came out, one of the few movies I've seen in theaters. But it was cool seeing how, that his connection to Elton John in 2016, now he's playing as Elton John now, still performing the songs. It was great.
Yeah. That was really cool. And I liked how they, because Taron Egerton has like really, really thick hair. I liked how they put a very convincing, like balding hair piece. Kind of like how Elton John's hair really is. It started
really wispy. Yeah.
Yeah, that was very good makeup.
Well, it looked totally, I never even thought of that till you just said it. So
Yeah.
I was totally fooled by it. And the movie even sort of draws attention to his hair because his mom made a comment to him, I think, when he was a kid, and he said, he wanted to get a Elvis haircut, and his mom said,
Yeah.
enjoy it now, cause in 10 years you're gonna be bald.
Yeah. Oh. And then he pretty much did go bald. Like,
Yeah,
they didn't really talk about it, but I'm sure that was something he was very like depressed about. Was
yeah,
how he didn't look very attractive.
yeah. He definitely wasn't typically attractive looking person, especially when someone in performance, in entertainment, who cares so much about their appearance as he does. I'm sure that was a rough patch for him.
Yeah. I read somewhere that the reason why he wore so many different costumes was because his parents were so restrictive on how he looked as a kid. And so that was just his way of being like, I don't care, I do whatever the heck I want type of thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Although
Cause
I didn't like the Queen Elizabeth one, but that's just my opinion.
that was a cute one. That was pretty fun. What was your favorite costume out of the movie?
Honestly, I liked the very last one for when he was in I'm Still Standing. It was like a white, or not a white fedora. It was like a straw hat, I think, and then like a white suit.
Oh, the music video?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was a straw. I don't remember. I like that one.
Yeah. Probably I think his Dodger uniform was pretty fun.
Yeah, that one's a classic.
It's a cute one. It was good.
What did you think of his chicken one? Like the super
Chicken,
tall.
which was Oh, that one was awesome. The giant headdress,
Yeah.
2 feet up. That thing was great.
Yes.
I can't imagine performing in that.
No.
Especially how active he was on stage. It's like props to him for pulling that off.
Yeah, and the fact that he made the piano a super stationary instrument, like alive and entertaining. Like he was jumping all around it. He was
Yeah,
crazy.
he was totally dynamic on stage for how hard it is to be a pianist and do anything.
Yeah, and he's wearing big old heels. Like he's crazy with that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever played the piano, Shane, but the few times I have, it's super hard to hit the pedal with any shoe on, let
No,
alone
I
a heel.
yeah, I took some piano lessons growing up for a couple years. And I never got very good at it. I can't even imagine sitting down at a piano and, figuring it out the way he could when he was a kid.
Yeah.
'Cause I struggled so bad so many times. It seemed like the most simplest things. Like you're saying, just playing both hands at the same time seemed impossible.
Yeah.
And then you have to throw in the foot action with the pedal. It's like,
It's insane.
too many appendages.
I have no idea how he did it. Like, he has to be like a savant or something, because there's no way any normal person would know how to do that. I really liked that transition scene where he's like playing on the piano and it's spinning around, and then he's like wearing different costumes as well.
Yeah.
That's another one of those one-shot trick things.
And that was really cool. And another really cool transition they did was it was can't remember the scene on the head of the transition, but it was one where it zoomed in on his glasses and then it zoomed out and then he was in the rehab center.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really cool one, really creative transition they did there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were really good with that. I'm surprised they didn't get nominated for visual effects with that.
I don't know. I guess with how many modern movies are so visually effects heavy, even though this one still had, a lot of intensive visually effects scenes, probably to so many other movies, a lot of action movies and a lot of, superhero movies too and stuff, being so VFX heavy. This one probably was still on sort of the light end of the spectrum of VFX for a lot of blockbusters.
Yeah, I guess that's true. The dynamic between Elton John and his manager was just insane. Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that actually happened.
I know there's so many layers there. There's so many different elements there, and especially as their relationship developed, like at the start it seemed sort of, like a crush type, they both had feelings for each other, and then the manager basically just ditched him. Then he showed back up in the studio, and then they got serious, and it was like, it seemed, that was another really tragic element of the movie, because I think that destroyed Elton John, romantically and emotionally.
Yeah.
Almost probably worse than anything else.
For sure. And apparently the manager was also the same manager, one of the managers for Queen. If I read that right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, it's insane.
I know, he was, the manager appeared in Bohemian Rhapsody, a different actor was playing him.
You're right. I just realized that.
Yeah. I can't remember the role he played too well. I remember the big scene where he got fired. They were sitting in a limousine or something in the back of a car, and then Freddie Mercury blew up at him and fired him, and that was a big point of tension in the movie.
Yeah. I wonder if that was happening simultaneously with Elton John.
That's a good question. That's interesting. This manager was all over the place.
Yeah. He was with every flamboyant singer of the 70s.
I know. British, especially.
Yeah. What was weird was, because the actor who played the manager, I saw him in the live-action Disney Cinderella movie.
Who did he play in that?
He was Prince Charming, I think.
He was?
Yeah. So I was like, oh, it's that guy. Oh!
I know, he's a very, very different character in this movie.
Yeah. And I was talking to my wife, I was like, it'd be weird if on the same airplane flight we were on, where we watched Cinderella, if we also watched Rocketman right after, it'd be like, that's a different take on this guy.
He's a talented actor for sure, being able to go both ways like that so convincingly, that's and he went all out in Rocketman,
Yes, he did.
couldn't have gone much further, so props to him. He has more willpower than I would have had.
Yeah, for real. So something that I thought about at the end of the movie was how it was kind of like the 12-step program. Like the whole movie was kind of like the 12-step program. I don't remember all the steps. I just remember one of them, where it's like acceptance of your faults and acceptance of like situations that have happened to you. And that kind of happened at the end when he's talking to both himself, his parents, and his manager, like in the rehab center.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm looking at the 12 steps of AA right now, because you mentioning that got me curious.
Yeah, I can't remember what they all are, but I'm pretty sure the movie is loosely fulfilling all of those steps.
Yeah, that last scene where he, the visions of himself and his family and everybody, that was really the point where Elton John came to terms with, the wrongs he has done to those people as well as what they've done to him. Mm-hmm. And it was, the real reality check, I think, for him. It didn't really happen until that moment. Yeah.
At first, when I saw the people walking in, I was like, wait, why are they there? Oh, this is in his head.
Yeah. Came in from the shadows.
Uh-huh. And then the really important people was, himself and Bernie. Like, those were the important people he talked to. That's pretty much all my points about it. What do you think? What would you give this movie on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'd probably say a 7 or an 8 out of 10. 'Cause I can't really think of anything like, any big faults the movie had. I don't think there are any real shortcomings of it. I think all the performances are really good. I think the only real problem I had was, like I was saying before, I wish it went a little more into the story of his friend Bernie. And I think that sort of, cause I just like Bernie as a character so much. I like that relationship so much. I think it just, there was an element there that felt sort of hollow to me. But I think if they sort of filled that in more, I would have been a bit more satisfied by the movie. Besides that, I thought, it really succeeded and achieved everything it was trying to.
For sure. I think I'd give it I think I'll also give it an 8 out of 10. I mean, it wasn't the greatest movie ever, but it wasn't like a terrible movie. I will say I still like Bohemian Rhapsody more.
Really?
Yeah. I think just because I'm a real big Queen fan, so I really appreciated that one.
Yeah.
I didn't really know that much about Elton John. And now, I really like his music too, but nowhere near as much as Queen. And so, I wasn't that invested into it. It was still a good movie. It wasn't terrible.
I've always been a big Queen fan too. Like, probably similar to you, much more into Queen than Elton John for pretty much my entire life. But I think Bohemian Rhapsody, I saw that one in theaters. I didn't see Rocketman in theaters, but I like Bohemian Rhapsody a lot as well. But I think just the way the movie was structured, it didn't really hold me as well as Rocketman did. Like, I don't think it really did as good of a job making you really sympathize and sort of understand, Freddie Mercury like like you could with Elton John and Rocketman.
Yeah, I guess that's true because in Bohemian Rhapsody, it kind of felt like a third-person point of view at Freddie Mercury, whereas Rocketman, it felt like you were in Elton John's head and like seeing it from his perspective. But only time will tell which one people will really look back into.
Yeah, which one people will remember.
I hate how people nowadays, whenever a recent movie comes out, they'll say, "Oh, it's a modern classic or instant classic," and like, what? It has to be at least 10 years for it to be a classic. I thought.
Maybe they're just making their predictions. They think that they liked it enough, or I guess they just think that this movie will be one of the movies 10 years from now, look back on as being a great cinematic work. I don't know if Rocketman or Elton John Rocketman or Bohemian Rhapsody will hit that. I think it's pretty tough for a lot of musicals too, because I think musicals are, they date themselves a lot easier.
Yeah.
Than a lot of other types of movies do.
Yeah, I don't know if people will care about this movie in 20 years even. All in all, I think it was a good movie. I think it was worth the watch.
I agree. It was heartfelt. It definitely taught me a lot about Elton John that I had no idea. I had no idea about this dude walking into the movie, so I feel like I came out being very curious about him and his life, and though it worked. I think the movie worked.
Yeah. I kind of wish more movies were like that, like where you know nothing about the characters going in. Because like we have so many sequels, so many reboots now. It's kind of hard to have something like that now.
Yeah. A lot of big studios are too afraid to invest a lot in original ideas, because if you're dropping $100 million on a movie, you don't you want to have some guarantee of getting something back. So I agree though. I think that I think streaming though, like we were talking about streaming earlier, I think that streaming becoming more powerful and things like Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon investing so much in smaller filmmakers and more independent projects, I think that we are going to see a lot more of that. I think we already have started seeing a lot more of that through Netflix originals and stuff.
Oh, for sure, especially their documentaries.
Yeah. Netflix said Tiger King was the biggest one, like,
yes.
who would ever guess that that sort of faction of people ever existed? I mean, I have never ever heard of people that are that obsessive and that into exotic animal collecting.
Yeah, that was so insane. Like, I can't believe he was able to actually run for governor and president. Like,
Yeah.
that blew my mind. He was able to physically do that, considering the financial state they were in.
I know. He pulled it off, though. I mean, I can't even imagine that guy's life, you know. And he's, probably be out of prison not too long, right? I don't know what sentence he got.
I have no idea either. I just remember in the last episode of that, they were saying how the case was still open, like they're still finding new evidence for it. So, who knows 5 years from now where he'll be.
Yeah, well, like Freddie Mercury, Elton John, Joe Exotic. They're all, flamboyant, wonderful personalities.
Yeah, what was his statement? He's like, I'm Joe Exotic, the gay, gun-toting, mullet-wearing tiger owner. Like,
Yeah. Fantastic dude. Probably, not a great person, but he is very, very entertaining.
Yeah,
sure.
For sure. You do bring up a good point, though, about Tiger King, how, not a lot of people talk about it now. Because for a month ago, it was huge and everywhere, but now people don't talk about it as much. And I kind of feel like that's a danger we're going into with, like, fads and all of that are gone in, like, 2 seconds. Like, that could definitely damage how movies will be in the future.
Yeah. I bet you're right, where we probably won't. There'll be very, very few movies, I bet, that actually stick around past, 3 to 5 years after they're initially released. Just because it probably all has to do with how much shorter attention spans are getting. The people's need for sort of instant gratification and new stimuli all the time now.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to have a major impact on any movies becoming, classics, becoming, long-standing movies that people will show their kids for generations.
Yeah. Like, I watch Star Wars, and Empire Strikes Back is 40 years old now, but I don't notice that when I watch it. Whereas, probably this movie, Rocketman, I think it's not going to age very well. Like,
Yeah.
It's crazy how it's so fast.
I know. No, some movies are definitely timeless, and part of it might be because Rocketman's a musical too, where, there's some musicals that are, ancient and people still watch them today, but I think that a lot of musicals just don't connect with a modern audience, the way that a lot of other genres can, like sci-fi. So, there's a lot of sci-fi movies. People, they're timeless somehow, but they are.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Do you think the Marvel movies will be timeless, or do you think they're going to age horribly?
I think they already have started aging horribly, personally. I enjoyed seeing them when they're coming out. I saw most of them coming out in theaters, but I've tried going back and watching some of them, and I just feel boring somehow. A lot of them they don't really grab me as they did before.
Mm.
Maybe it's because I'm not in a theater. That's also possible, because action movies too are always, being immersed, giant screen, a bunch of people around you. It's definitely a different experience than watching, Iron Man 2 sitting on your couch on your laptop by yourself. That's not quite the same. Yeah.
Definitely. That brings up another point I had about this movie. And maybe it's just how movies are now, but the dialogue was so quiet, and then I'd turn it up really loud, and then when the music came on, it was super loud, so I had to turn it back down. So the whole movie, I was turning it up and down. That drove me crazy.
Yeah, I've had that problem with a couple things. This movie, I noticed that a little bit as well. I don't know if it was just mixed quieter, or if you know, just the actual speaker setup I have at my house isn't what it should be. I don't know what it is. But there were a couple points, too, where I would even turn on subtitles because I felt like I missed an important, line in the movie. So I would go back 30 seconds, turn on subtitles, and rewatch it and turn them off again.
Yeah, and I know they were British, but it was really hard to understand them sometimes. I think the manager for me was the hardest to understand. But some of
Yeah,
his
man,
lines were very slurred and yeah.
him and then I think there were a couple of scenes with the bandmates where it was tough for me. But
Yeah, maybe we're just getting old, Shane.
that's possible. That's very possible. We're a lot older than we used to be. Like looking at release dates for movies, it's like, even one, I was looking up Sing because of, Taron and his performance of the gorilla.
Uh-huh.
I think that movie came out 4 years ago, 2016.
Oh my gosh.
Which is, it's a while ago. The movie feels very, very recent, but it's not at all.
I remember when it was coming out. I
Yeah.
remember the trailers for it.
I think it was our senior year of high school. I think the
Yeah,
trailers
that
are coming
was our
out.
senior year. What the heck, Shane?
Time flies, Harrison.
It's way
Time
too
flies
fast.
when you're having fun.
Or you're working every day.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Shane, do you have anything else you want to add to discuss about Rocketman?
I think we touched all the points we needed to, Harrison. I think anyone that listens to this will know if they want to see Rocketman or not.
Absolutely.
I think they're gonna have a lot of spoilers. I think that but they'll know. They'll know what the movie's all about.
Is it really spoiling, though, if it actually happened?
That's a good point.
I don't know. I don't make up the rules. Well, thanks for being here, Shane.
Thank you, Harrison. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, it was a blast. So, tell the folks where they can find you at. Where can they stalk you?
You can check out my Instagram, Shane McPartland. That's it, just my first and last name. No space, no capitals or anything. Shane McPartland on Instagram. And you can keep up with my goings-ons there. I try to make my own little short films as well as do sound work, independent sound work on stuff. So say hi, and I'll say hi back.
Heck yeah. Thanks, Shane.
Thank you, Harrison.
Thank you for listening to Surfing Through Cinema. Make sure to check us out on Facebook at Surfing Through Cinema with Hawaii Harry and on Instagram with Surfing Through Cinema. We also have a website, www.anchor.fm/Surfing Through Cinema, where you can learn more details on upcoming episodes and on past episodes. We also want to let you know we're available on YouTube, so check us out Wednesday mornings at 5 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.